Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm Erin, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our theme for season 2 is Booktok and Bestsellers, and this week we're reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead.
This week is a very important time in me and Grace's lives because we are prepping for our annual New York City trip.
Woo!
Which we go next week. And this started last year when we went up. We were poor then, so we only went up for a day. It wasn't a trip.
Like up and back in the same day, like no sleeping overnight.
Bust it back. But we had to go see Bad Cinderella before it closed on Broadway.
And when you say, did you have to? Yes, we did.
Yeah, it got into our head. We had to do it. There was no choice. We got bucket hats.
Yes. So the annual NYC trip has been bougied up a little bit, as in we're staying for a couple days.
As in we have a hotel and are taking the train.
Instead of the bus, because we're big girls now.
However, we are still going to see a bad show. I mean, we don't know if it's going to be bad. We can only assume based on the premise. And that is Cats set in the 1980s queer ballroom dance scene.
But actually, I think it's going to be a great idea.
I think it's going to be another other Boleyn girl situation where It's like, is it good? No. Do we love it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, should we spill the beans now on what other bonus episode we're going to have that we get out of our New York musical content?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to have a bonus episode that is going to be a triple whammy book, movie, musical, because we're going to see Water for Elephants.
And I cannot wait. So I read the book. I have no idea how, movie, okay. How are they going to do that? How are they going to get an elephant on stage?
Big puppet? I don't know.
I really hope it's puppets. Do you remember War Horse when that came out? It was just a giant horse puppet.
No.
Okay, well, look that up.
I remember the King Kong musical with the big King Kong puppet.
See, now that's one I wish I knew about.
Luckily I have you so that you can tell me about War Horse and I can tell you about King Kong.
Exactly. Who else would we talk to?
Yeah, but please keep an eye on our social media so you can get bookstore content from all the bookstores that we're going to in New York.
You will actually have to scroll back because this episode comes out well after our trip. So scroll back through our feed.
If we're good and we keep up with posting on the TikTok.
Yes, then you will have lots of content.
Yeah.
But we're going to some different bookstores, specifically two of note. The one from the All Too Well 10-minute version short film. And the one where you can swap books for pickles.
Yes. I don't even know if I'm going to buy a book there at Sweet Pickle Books. But I am very excited to buy a jar of pickles if I can. And at the very least, some swag from the pickle bookstore.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely. And it looks like you're going to see another show?
Yes.
Here in D.C.?
I am seeing Bye Bye Birdie at the Kennedy Center this week, which is of personal note to me because Bye Bye Birdie was the first musical that I ever was in.
Oh.
Yes. So in case anyone's wondering, I played the illustrious role of Helen, who has one line. I don't know. It's just a blast from my past. So I texted my friends and I was like, do you want to come to this? I'm going whether or not you do.
Oh, my God.
But luckily, famous people are in it. Christian Borle of Legally Blonde, the musical fame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it'll be a hoot.
That one, they did that one year at my high school, but it was after my sister, who was in the drama program, after she graduated, so I wasn't obligated to go see it. So I didn't.
There you go.
Is that one of the one Dick Van Dyke is in the movie of?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was mixing it up with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or if he was in both of them.
Both.
I hate Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
I'm also not a fan.
We had it on DVD and I always hated watching it.
Well, also, this just made me remember, did we get tickets to the Kite Runner? Because they're doing the Kite Runner at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, shit. Okay. Add that to the to-do list.
I'll just open that up into a tab so we remember to do it after this.
Oh, my God. Okay. Well, thank you. So while you're not out here forgetting to buy tickets like me, what are you reading?
Well, I can't talk about the book that I'm actually reading right now because it's going to be a podcast episode 2 episodes from now.
With a special guest.
With a special guest. But you can tell when we get to the end of the season, time is catching up with us.
Yeah. We are not as far ahead as we once were.
But I can give a little tip to to all of our listeners who are in the general DMV Virginia area, but also to any of our listeners who are listening in from North Carolina or Tennessee. I went to the McKay Used Books this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Her favorite store.
Yes, my favorite. We frequent the one in Manassas, Virginia.
But Did you get Cookout?
No.
Flop.
Well, we went to Cracker Barrel.
Oh, okay. Also Sly.
You can't also go to Cookout. That would just your insides would blow up.
Okay, that's true.
But there are 3 in Tennessee and 2 in North Carolina, I believe. No, maybe there are 3. There are some in each state. And I bought 7 books and spent $14.
Wow, what books? Do you have a list?
They vary. I can not imagine the stack in my head.
She's visualizing in her mind's eye.
No historical fiction, I don't think, sadly. But like I bought a nonfiction about the history of the memoir.
Okay.
I bought the book My Dark Vanessa, which was very popular.
Yeah. You recommended that one to me.
Yeah, I read it and I want to own a copy of it, which says a lot because I have limited shelf space.
She's very limited shelf space.
But I am very proud of 7 books for $14.
Yeah, that's pretty iconic.
What about you? What are you reading?
Well, as I discussed last week, now that I get motion sick on the metro, I can no longer read on my commute to work, which is very long, and I have a lot of time. So I'm back on audiobooks. And what happened to be up on my hold list is called The Cave Dwellers.
Okay.
And I don't have the person name, and I don't care enough to look it up right now. Mm-hmm. But The Cave Dwellers is apparently a term for the uber rich in Washington, D.C.
Oh.
So like the people who run shit.
Okay.
So it's about like 3 really, really rich families and like their kids, and you would think it'd be more Gossip Girly, but it's like not very well written, but it's fine.
Well, this maybe, I don't know if this is part of the book or if it is, if you've like gotten there yet, but I think there was a point in which my grandma had that nickname for people in her town, the Cave People, and it was an acronym. Is it an acronym in the book that you're reading?
No, and there's the Cave Dwellers, not the Cave People.
Well, ours was Cave People, but it was Citizens Against Virtually Everything. It was status quo people. It's like the people who are actively today trying to get Call Your Mother evicted from Georgetown.
Oh my God.
Because there's too much street traffic around the bagel place.
Yeah, it's like about those families, but it's fun because like there'll be little sections where it like talks about like the history of like a place or like a restaurant or something in DC. So it's a lot of fun.
Cute.
And I'm enjoying it. Is it good? No. Would I recommend it? Probably not, but it's fine.
When your commute is as long as yours,
I'm like, it's fine.
You got to pass the time somehow.
There are just so many characters who have points of view, like named characters, that I had to slow down the speed. I'm like, I can't do my 1.75 because I don't know what's happening. I have to go to 1.50 or 1.5. It's pretty rough. But yeah, if you have any good audiobook recommendations, I'm on the hunt again. All right, well, let's get into this book, which is The Underground Railroad. Excuse me, because I'm going to stumble over the R's this entire podcast, so I'll say that in advance. This was another Pulitzer Prize winner, so let's get into the synopsis, which is a little lengthy.
It's okay. We need all the background we can get.
Cora is a slave on a cotton plantation in Georgia. Life is hell for all the slaves, but especially bad for Cora. An outcast even among her fellow Africans, she is coming into womanhood, where even greater pain awaits. When Caesar, a recent arrival from Virginia, tells her about the Underground Railroad, they decide to take a terrifying risk and escape. Matters do not go as planned. Cora kills a young white boy who tries to capture her. Though they manage to find a station to head north, they are being hunted. In Whitehead's ingenious conception, the Underground Railroad is no mere metaphor. Engineers and conductors operate a secret network of tracks and tunnels beneath the southern soil. Cora and Caesar's first stop is South Carolina, in a city that initially seems like a haven. But the city's placid surface masks an insidious scheme designed for its black denizens. And even worse, Ridgway, the relentless slave catcher, is close on their heels. Forced to flee again, Cora embarks on a harrowing flight, state by state, seeking true freedom. Like the protagonist of Gulliver's Travels, Cora encounters different worlds at each stage of her journey. Hers is an odyssey through time as well as space. And I was uncertain what that meant, but doing my historical research, I have some answers to that. So put a pin in it.
Stay tuned.
As Whitehead brilliantly recreates the unique terrors for Black people in pre-Civil War era, his narrative seamlessly weaves the saga of America from the brutal importation of Africans to the unfulfilled promises of the present day. The Underground Railroad is at once a kinetic adventure tale of one woman's ferocious will to escape the horrors of bondage and a shattering, powerful meditation on the history we all share. That synopsis had a lot of alliteration in it.
More than you would think.
I was tongue-twisted out.
And it was long, but I feel like it was content-packed.
I agree.
Sometimes we get a long synopsis, like for Song of Achilles, that's basically just like a lot of fluff about how Madeline Miller is so great. But this one, it told a tale with every sentence.
This one, it set us up well.
And actually, I was prepared to be like, wow, we've read so many Pulitzer Prize winners, but this is the second one.
I thought All the Light We Cannot See was also one.
That was the one that I was thinking.
No, The Night Watchman.
Oh, shoot.
This is our third one.
I forgot about that one. Because in my head, it was The Luminaries, but that won a completely different prize.
I try to forget about The Night Watchman.
Sorry, Night Watchman.
But not her other book that I loved.
Okay, it is 3. So,
okay.
3.
So let's get into the author a bit. So, as I said, this book is another Pulitzer Prize winner, which is just one of Whitehead's many awards that he's won. So he was raised in Manhattan and went to Harvard. He's written a bunch of books based on historical events and places. One notably I want to read is The Nickel Boys, which is based on the Dozier School for Boys in Florida. Have you heard of that?
I have. I actually was going to say, when we get to have you read anything else, I have read The Underground Railroad before, but I really want to read The Nickel Boys because earlier this year I read a nonfiction book about the Dozier School for Boys, which was written by the woman who was oh my gosh, I'm going to use the wrong term here, but basically the person they had to excavate the site and find the bones of the boys.
Oh, okay.
And it was extremely well written, and I had heard of the Nickel Boys, but I didn't know what it was about.
Okay.
And now that I do, I really want to read it.
Yeah, and for our listeners, in case you don't know, it was a school that horribly abused and
in some cases killed.
Yeah, in many cases, children died there, the boys who went to school. In 2020, Whitehead won the Library of Congress Prize for American Fiction, and that someone else won it this season.
Was it Louise Erdrich?
I don't know.
I'm going to do a little bit of Googling real quick.
But he's taught at a ton of universities, and on his bio on his website, there was a funny line where it's like, apparently he can't keep a job. And that made me laugh because I'm like, obviously this man is like a high demand professor, but it made me laugh.
Oh, actually, you were right and wrong.
Okay.
So Louise Erdrich did win it.
Okay.
But also, our favorite from a previous season, Isabel Allende, has won it.
I thought she won. Then who won the presidential medal?
Well, nowadays, it's called the Library of Congress Prize for American Fiction, and it has been called that since 2013. So Louise and Colson won it under that name.
Okay.
But it was previously called the Library of Congress Creative Achievement Award for Fiction.
Okay.
So that is Isabel Allende.
Okay.
And I think she also was the presidential
something. Because we talked about this in the Night Watchman episode.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Okay. That's what we talked about in the Night Watchman. Okay. Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, that's cool.
And my fact that I teased last week from trivia is Colson Whitehead is one of only 4 authors to have won the Pulitzer twice.
Wow. Wait, which was his first time?
First was for the Underground Railroad, and then the Nickel Boys.
Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, that one I missed on the website, that it was Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, well, he has a bunch of other books, and I wasn't sure which one it was. But when I looked up the Nickel Boys, because I was like, oh, I want to read that, because now I've read this other book about Dozier, which is, by the way, the title of it is called We Carry Their Bones by Aaron Kimmerl. Okay. So for reference for other people to look that up. But yeah, so the other one that got it was the Nickel Boys, and it was within 4 years of each other. And the other 3 authors, for anyone else who might attend trivia, are Sherwood Anderson, Booth Tarkington, and William Faulkner.
Okay, pretty cool.
So all dead. So good for Colson Whitehead, because he's the one who's doing it now.
Good for being alive. This book has been made into a 10-part limited series on Amazon Prime, which this is not a long book.
No, I said that. Listen, I am all for more episodes of stuff. This is not a lengthy book for 10 episodes. I'm not saying that they can't do it, because I think it could be good. But I am surprised by 10 parts.
It's a 306 pages. I kind of want to watch the show just to see, like, what gets extended.
Well, and also, I hadn't heard of this.
No.
Oh, not to change the subject.
Okay.
Real quick, I have to say this. The Pachinko show is getting a 2nd season.
What? I thought it was a limited series.
That's what I thought. And that's the same reaction that I had. My mom told me, she was like, you know, Pachinko is getting a 2nd season. And I was like, what? So I haven't watched the first season, so I don't know.
Still need to.
Well, either they didn't finish the whole book the first time and they're just lucky they got renewed, or they did the whole book and then they're going to have to make stuff up. So I don't know.
Now I want to know. Now we have to watch it.
So we're going to do research on that. But I also did not know, frankly, until you were looking it up, that there was an adaptation of this book.
No, I didn't either. Until I started doing like the historical accuracy research. And I was like, oh, there's a show?
It's probably because Amazon Prime has really fallen off as a streaming service.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a brief period of time where it was like the Holy Trinity, like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime was like creeping upwards in the race for like the number 2 spot.
And now it's HBO Max.
And now HBO Max is everything. Okay. And they're doing their best to bring themselves down, but that's a whole other conversation.
Okay, one last plug for HBO Max. Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, except Summer School, the 2nd season. So good.
Okay. Good job, HBO Max. You did one thing correct.
That's it. You actually did 2 seasons of one thing correctly. Before we get into it, our judgments on this book come based on the book itself and characters within it, rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on.
Yep. And in this case, I don't think most of them we have to worry about that.
Yeah, I don't think explicitly.
They're pretty fake.
I want to start with a little preface because I am running into a luminary situation with this book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure many of you gleaned from the synopsis, this is a very heavy book. It's not another Boleyn Girl book.
It might be our heaviest, at least of the season.
It's one of, yeah. So I read this at a very unfair time to my review. I was under a ton of stress. I was like losing my mind. So I did not want a heavy read. Mm-hmm. So when I was reading it, I just was not enjoying myself. I was not enjoying the book. And that definitely did skew my review of it a lot. And I'm sure that's going to reflect. So I'm going to, try to mitigate that as best I can.
I will say I do see, even just looking at your notes and hearing the way that we've spoken about it, the little bit that we have, I do sense a lot of difference in your approach. Frankly, I think if you had read The Luminaries not on Benadryl on an airplane, I think you still probably wouldn't like it.
I agree. I was going to say that. I feel like The Luminaries, my criticisms would have been the same anyway. Mm-hmm. This book, I think my opinion would have drastically changed.
Yes. I think you can see through your experience to good parts of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't think you're going to not give it a fair shake.
No, like, I definitely think this is an incredibly well-written book. It's just the vibes were abysmal at the time I was reading it. I wish I had read this and the other Boleyn Girl in the reverse order. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been much better for me.
And I think sometimes, like you said, this is a 306-page book. We've picked a lot of honkers for this season.
Not this one.
Not on purpose, and not this book. But it does take you a while. And sometimes that is a ding against the writing. Sometimes you're wading through it and it's too thick. But in this case, you're chewing on the sentences, you're mulling over each page. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that's a good thing, and it reflects positively on the quality of the writing. Mm-hmm. But just because it's short, you're not whizzing through it.
On the quality of the writing, I also want to talk about the quality of the author. That sounds a little weird, but hear me out. My least favorite thing in a book is when an author treats you like you're stupid. Mm-hmm. And over-explains everything to you. I really like that Whitehead trusts us enough to be intelligent and figure out what's going on. Like, we don't have a massive introduction to each character as we're introduced. We're pretty much just dropped straight into the scene and left to figure out what's happening. And I like that.
Yes, we jump from place to place inherently in the structure of the book, which we'll get into in a little bit because I think it shapes your perception of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. With each new beginning, you're not handheld. You're not told, like, here's what happened in between the time I left you and now. You're just like, whomp.
You're just there.
Start. Yeah. And I mentioned that before. I 100% agree with you. I want to read books where the author thinks that the reader is smart and is not holding my hand.
It's also very difficult for the author to do that, I think, in a lot of books, because I think it's natural instinct to be like, here's everything that happened. Mm-hmm. But absolutely. I think it's a much more difficult and refined skill set to be like, I'm just going to put you here and it's going to make sense and that's it.
Yes. And this is, again, the prose that's there is the necessary stuff. He stripped this down to 300 pages. Mm-hmm. This is all, this is all that you need.
So how do you want to approach getting into this?
I want to talk about the idea of the book and what people first heard about it when it came out and what I knew about it. I read it at the time. Okay. And what I heard about it before reading it, which is this is a book about the Underground Railroad that takes place in an alternate America. Okay. That doesn't 100% reflect the reality of our history, in which case the central change is that the Underground Railroad is a literal Underground Railroad. Mm-hmm. That is, I think, the choice that shapes all of it. Yes. Because it is a book that muses on the effects of slavery in a philosophical way. And you're getting history. You will be prepared to tell us about this later. Yes. That is echoes of the truth. I recognize things in this book repeatedly. Like there is a mention briefly of the Tuskegee syphilis study. There is a mention of the existence of body snatchers in African-American graveyards. Mm-hmm. There's all of these things that are real to our history, but kind of jumbled up in place and time.
That was definitely something I remember stopping and Googling, like, when did this happen? Because I thought, like, the syphilis trials, I'm like, isn't that much later? And I'm like, oh, and that's when I kind of caught on. Mm-hmm.
So the alternate America is, I compare it almost to the way that we talked about Hamnet. Okay. We can pretty fairly discount the idea that the real Hamnet died of the Black Plague. Mm-hmm. Like there is no accounting of a plague in that place in that time. But Maggie O'Farrell took that idea and is using it for a much larger illustration of a point, which is the family relationships of the Shakespeares and the creation of Hamlet the play and the emotion behind it. Mm-hmm. And Colson Whitehead is doing the same thing. He's taking these real events in history and he's moving them around and he's creating his alternate America, but it's in service of this larger theme and larger point. And I think it is extremely successful. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that?
You put everything more eloquently than I do. I also completely agree with that. I think, and this is something I'm going to get into when I talk about the historical accuracy. For me, in this novel, history is used not as fact, but as a tool. Because everything that's discussed, like, this all happened, and these were the lived experiences of Black Americans throughout from, when does this book, like 1850, I believe, onward. Mm-hmm. But combining it all as, like, a tool of, as Cora travels through the different states, each state kind of represents, like, a different horror that's going on. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was such an interesting way to propel the story forward. And again, for me, it was hard because the story was so heavy. So it was really like...
And the shifts are extremely stark and dramatic. It starts in Georgia when Cora is still enslaved on a plantation. And then she escapes via the Underground Railroad and she's in South Carolina. And South Carolina is specifically like this. And then you get to North Carolina, and it's like a completely different country. Yeah. It's like not a neighboring state at all. They are so starkly different.
It was almost like she was moving through, like, different books almost.
Yeah, like when she went underground into the Underground Railroad and came out, she was in a whole other world. Mm-hmm. Like the going underground specifically is almost a symbol of that
and
change.
And still experiencing these different layers of trauma on top of each other. Because not only is it the slavery, the racial trauma, it's also sexual trauma throughout. She's been abused and she has like this fear of men throughout. It's also familial because her mother left her to run away and she never finds out what happens to her mother. We as the readers do. Her mother was bitten by some kind of snake. I don't remember.
It's the most heartbreaking moment in the whole book, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Almost finding out because this whole time she has known her mother escaped and didn't take her with her. Mm-hmm. But what actually happened was that the mother ran away, came back to get her, and died that night.
Yeah.
So everyone has this idea that the mother is somewhere out in the world having gotten to Canada or whatever, but really she's been dead the whole time. Yeah. And it's just kind of a symbol of the futility, and it comes right at the end, and it's a real gut punch.
And it's that the fact that those layers of trauma don't just... She can't leave them behind. They take a new form in all of these states that are so seemingly different, but at the core level, exactly the same.
Yeah, there's no improvement anywhere she goes. And not to hop ahead too much to the end, I feel like this book, we just kind of have to let our thoughts spew out in whatever way they come. At the end, she does, she takes the Underground Railroad to an unknown stop, gets out. We don't know what state she's in because she doesn't know. She hitches a ride from people heading out west, and that's it. You don't know if she's safe or if she'll ever be able to stop running. It's the best possible place he could have ended the book. It wouldn't have rung true if he ended it any nicer. He could have ended it worse. There are so many places where it could have been worse had he stopped. But before we get too far away from your idea of history as a tool, I want to say that's this whole podcast. That's the thing that we come to historical fiction for. Mm-hmm. It's the combination of using the history as an educational teaching moment and using it to create emotion in a story.
Yeah.
And this book does combine to do both of those things.
And I'm going to give now an example of one that just came to mind that doesn't... I think there are different ways you can approach it. Mm-hmm. There's the ones that take it too far, where it's just like it's not a teaching tool at all. They're just using it thematically. Mm-hmm. And then you have ones that take it too educational, no emotion, which is like on the land remembered spectrum of things, where it's just like that kind of dry, emotionless. I'm trying to think of an example, and of course I'm forgetting every single book we've read.
Well, kind of the last two compared to that, because we said the history was kind of taken for granted in The Other Boleyn Girl, which we didn't mind, of course, because we had a great time with that book. And I said that I think that the history did a disservice to She Who Became the Sun, because there was too much.
Yeah. And I think this book is a really good balance because it does serve as that tool while also... this stuff did happen. Mm-hmm.
And I got curious while we were sitting here talking, and I looked up the other books that were nominated for the Pulitzer Prize this year. I haven't read either of them. So
What are
there's
they?
no big discovery there. One is Imagine Me Gone by Adam Hazlitt.
Okay.
And the other is The Sport of Kings by C.E. Morgan. It has a horse on the front. I remember this cover and I haven't read it. But I was going to say, like, this book completely and 100% deserves its Pulitzer Prize, in my opinion.
I would say even with my skew, and where I'm docking off points for this book, spoiler alert, is the vibes category, just because I didn't want to be reading something heavy.
Mm-hmm.
This book I can firmly say deserves this Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, and also I have read classic books before that I just hate, and I just know that I do. And I was like, I personally think this book has no value.
Mm-hmm.
Great Expectations. And I've read classic books that I have loved and just like unabashedly loved. And then there have been books that I've read where I'm like, well, I can't really wrap my head around this, but I know that it is good. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So it's all about time and place, and it's about, lots of different factors.
Do you want to go through the plot a little bit?
Sure. First off, it starts with our main character, Cora, who is enslaved on a plantation in Georgia. And she's an outcast there. Her mother has abandoned her. Her grandmother is dead. And she's basically lumped in with all of the women who have lost their minds to grief, essentially. One day, one of the other men asks her, named Caesar, will you come with me to run away? And later she asks him, why did you choose me? And he said, because I knew that you would make it if you came.
Yeah, especially based on her mother.
Yes.
Because it was the assumption that she made it.
Yes. So they get on the Underground Railroad, which, like I said, is a literal railroad. And each station has a station agent. So those are the white abolitionists, essentially. And each of those characters, the way that they're used actually is really interesting.
I agree.
The one in Georgia is just kind of neutral, but they then get from Georgia to South Carolina. The stops on the railroad itself are very, it's not like hopping on the Amtrak train. They get in and they don't know where they're going to come out.
Yeah.
But the goal is to just keep moving further and further and further north. And then like it said, some people just get one state over. Some people escape up to the north of America. Some people try and go all the way to Canada and stay there. They get to South Carolina. South Carolina is, on its surface, much more integrated than Georgia.
Yes. South Carolina, I thought, was the most interesting because it takes a while for Cora, and when she's living here, she goes by the name Bessie, but for Cora to understand what's happening below the surface, and therefore us as readers to understand what's happening below the surface.
Exactly. Colson Whitehead lulls you into complacency the same way Caesar and Cora are.
Yeah.
Like the other, for example, Georgia and North Carolina, they are just like barefacedly evil.
Yeah.
You do not have to interrogate them for long periods of time to see that that's the case.
Yes.
But in South Carolina, they have jobs. They can purchase things. They can walk down the street freely. Mm-hmm. They can, go
to school.
They can go to school. Yeah, they're learning to read legally. There are all of these great things, but then there's no stepping outside of the box. Yeah. And it's not until later when the state starts to pass a bill of forced sterilization that Cora kind of sees this trap for what it is.
And at that point, one of her jobs is like working in a living museum.
That was crazy.
That was crazy. She was basically like, there was an exhibit of like a slave ship and like she was on it. And then like a plantation. And it kind of, I think when she was working in there is when she realized
this is not right.
Yeah, something is up here. And then after that, she's talking to someone who had been like talking to a doctor, and that was when the forced sterilization was starting to come up, all of that. Mm-hmm. And this is also when the slave catcher starts to catch up and becomes a bigger character. Yes.
So let's talk briefly. There is a point of view character named Ridgway, and he is the slave catcher. And I straight up want to compare this 1-to-1 with the Nazi from All the Light We Cannot See. Mm-hmm. It's basically the same to me in terms of percentages. All the Light We Cannot See had 2 protagonists. This book only has 1. But I think that the Nazi character and Ridgway, the slave catcher, get the same amount of airtime in terms of POV. And I think Ridgway, to me at least, I think we might disagree on this, is a much more successful version of what Anthony Doerr was trying to do.
I don't think I disagree with you. I struggled with both of the characters. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, like, I am not opposed to having someone who is clearly a villain, clearly evil, have their POV. That's not what I'm trying to say. To me, both of them felt forced to have in the novel. Like, Ridgway, I thought it was kind of contrived. Like, the only time he had failed as a slave catcher was catching Cora's mother.
Yes.
Like, that kind of thing. And then, like, the Nazi who wanted the gem to, like, save his own life. Like, that kind of, it just felt,
Hacky.
yeah, a little hacky to me.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I would have been fine with the whole slave catcher plot had he not had a POV, I think. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same with the Nazi, had it not been about his illness and instead had been like, that was his job to get this diamond back. You know?
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Part of my problem with that was that, come on, like, you're dying of cancer and you need the magic gem to save you. Like,
yeah,
that's
how I felt with Ridgway, like, oh, you want your redemption because, like, her mother was.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think also both Colson Whitehead and Anthony Doerr are kind of butting up against a structural problem, mm-hmm. which is if they want to have these characters in the book, they have to have a POV. Because they're not in the same place as the main character, and they're not, like, keeping in contact through any other means, mm-hmm. you know? So they have to have a POV.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty successful. I didn't really have a problem with the idea that Ridgway didn't catch Cora's mother, and that was his, like, motivating mm-hmm. factor.
Yeah, that for me is what didn't work.
Yeah. But he was extremely villainous. He had more of a clear-cut motivation, at least, than getting the diamond. Like,
that I agree with.
Executing his job was at least, like,
and I think,
you know, literal.
Not to keep jumping back to All the Light We Cannot See, but I think if the Nazis' motivation had been, like, his job and his commitment to, like, the Nazi party, that would have, I think, felt so much stronger to me.
If he had to get the gem because Hitler wanted to put it in a museum, then I would be like, okay, like, I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
There were Nazis that got sent to loot art. Like, it happened.
And that would have felt, like,
a little hacky, but fine.
But also so much more evil.
Yeah.
Than just like, oh, he's trying to cure himself. Because then at some point you could be like, well, and then this way, Ridgway is clear-cut bad.
Yes. You don't empathize with him.
No.
And actually, there is a really amazing, we're just going to go full spoilers ahead. We always say that. So,
of course.
You know, part at the end where in Indiana, where Ridgway catches up with Cora, and he forces her to show him where a stop of the Underground Railroad is. Mm-hmm. And she knows, like, that could take the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And he's, like, got her in a chokehold so she can't get away. And she throws them both down the stairs. Mm-hmm. And it's, like, a self-sacrificial, she's like, this could kill me, but it'll kill him, too. And it does. And it was amazing. Mm-hmm. But also it just goes to show, like, devastatingly, like, her own life had so little value to her because it had been, like, nothing but horror. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mid-stop between South Carolina and Indiana is North Carolina. And in North Carolina, they have weekly public lynchings. And that's the thing about North Carolina. She spends the entire time hidden in the station agent's attic, lying on her back, like, can't come down, and it's months. Mm-hmm. It's horrible, 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 horrible. Not escapes. She leaves North Carolina when Ridgway catches up with her. Mm-hmm. She is broken out of his hold by a group of freed black men. Mm-hmm. And they end up on a farm in Indiana.
Okay. I'm glad you remember the states because I, like, know what happens. I do not remember where they were except for South Carolina.
I remembered the Carolinas because, like, you know, they're sisters.
Yeah.
I had to Google Indiana today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I did just, like, look it up.
Okay, I appreciate you doing that.
And Indiana it's a farm for freed black people and runaway slaves. Mm-hmm. And it's owned by, like, a kind of rich, kooky white guy. I don't want to say kooky because that seems mean. He's, like, an abolitionist, but also
like
he's
a little
just, like,
eccentric.
Yeah, like, I think his family is of, like, Italian origin, so he is not as locked into this, like, American dynamic in terms of the politics, in terms of North-South, you know, Republican, Democrat.
Was he the character who was married to a black woman?
Yes. His wife was black or mixed race or something. Mm-hmm. And that was his motivation to be, you know. Yeah. But at the end, when Ridgway comes, he also has come with basically a crowd of white white Hoosiers, that's the term for people from Indiana, who come to, like, burn down the farm because they essentially just don't want a group of black people living near them. And that's the end point. That's when Cora escapes via the Underground Railroad after killing Ridgway, escapes to a state where we don't know what, and then goes off to do what we don't know where. And that's that. And
throughout the book, there's a couple slave runaway messages because this is jumping ahead to the historical fiction, but 1850 Fugitive Slave Act was passed, which was when people in free states were supposed to, you know, return any runaways. Mm-hmm. So you start seeing these messages popping up, like searching for returned slaves. And I wanted to bring up her message because the last one was about Cora.
Okay.
And it said, she was never property. And I wanted your thoughts on that. And I almost feel like...
Well, can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Were the other ones real excerpts from real notices from real slave owners, or were they made up?
Well, okay. So jumping ahead to the historical accuracy again, I did find that he based a lot of this on oral stories of former slaves, runaway ads, and accounts of well-known escapees. So I don't know if he
So they're not literally true, but they're inspired by.
I don't know if he put in.
Okay. I think if they were actually literally true, we would know that. I think he would say.
And maybe I missed that. So apologies to our listeners if that is the case. Yeah, it was right towards the end, if you want to pull it up.
I am going to pull it up.
But I was just curious about, how you interpreted that. Because, frankly, I don't think I really did interpret it. I think I just jotted it down. It was word for word, she was never free. Or she was never property.
It almost seems like it's out of sync with the rest of the notice. Yeah. Because the rest of it is very much a missing ad. Ran away from her legal, but, no, this whole thing is almost more like a poem than a literal.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing here now, ran away from her legal but not rightful master. Yeah. Again, that holds up. A slave girl called Cora of ordinary height and dark brown complexion has a star-shaped mark on her temple from an injury. Possessed of a spirited nature and devious method, possibly answering to the name Bessie. Last seen in Indiana among the outlaws of John Valentine Farm. She has stopped running. Reward remains unclaimed. She was never property. It's combining things that would literally be written in a fugitive slave notice, ordinary height, dark brown complexion, star-shaped mark on her temple.
Yeah.
With things that are from her, not point of view, but her side.
Yeah.
So that's actually, I think, for that to be the last one, which it is, it's a few pages from the very end.
It's extremely poignant.
It's very good. I think that's a beautiful way to illustrate what she went through.
And I don't really have my own theories about it, but I do think it's kind of reflective of the book in that it takes, the real history and then adds in and infuses the emotions, the poetic aspects.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about those notices that were kind of sprinkled throughout the book.
I did not pay enough attention to see if the other ones related so closely with the other characters in the book.
They didn't.
I don't think they did.
They were random names, which is why I thought that they were lifted whole cloth from real historical documents, which it doesn't sound like they were.
They could have been. I don't know. But yeah, that one really stuck out to me, and I really liked it. So I noted it.
All right. Well, thank you, Colson Whitehead. Should we move into the historical accuracy?
I feel like we're already naturally going there anyway.
Yeah, I'm really ready to hear what you've come up with.
I kind of had a little bit of a cheat sheet while looking this up because Smithsonian's magazine actually wrote an article all about the historical accuracy of this book.
I love when that happens.
So, as usual, I have a quote from the author. So, Whitehead said that he, quote, seeks to portray the truth of things, not the facts.
That is a very simple way to articulate what we spent a long time describing earlier.
Exactly. And I was trying not to say it the whole time because I'm I have this in front of me.
But also you can't take credit for it.
Exactly.
Colson
I was going to give him credit.
Well, yeah.
Trying not to jump too far ahead. But it's very much the history used as a tool in this. Mm-hmm. So I interpreted that as a lot of the true emotions, experiences, etc., with kind of leaving the history up to. And I think we've had a couple authors who make some changes to, especially when it comes to timeline.
Definitely.
Obviously, Underground Railroad is not a literal railroad, but this actually came from the author's childhood idea that it was a literal underground subway system, which I think for, I vaguely remember that from when I was, little. I was it's a train underground.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, I'm sure he's not the only kid to think that, but also, especially a kid from New York, you're definitely going to think that.
Obviously, grew up in the city,
oh, yeah.
But I really liked that it was a literal railroad. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it was a good twist.
And it was also a really good way of, setting the scene that things that happened in history at different times were being collected into this one book. Because, yes, trains were a thing, but underground, that was not something.
It wasn't quite magical realism, but it almost gave you that vibe, which helped you accept the idea of the alternate America. I think it was a tool to help him get to connect the rest of the pieces of the book in the way that he wanted.
Which someone, and I can't remember who wrote it, but described this book as a, quote, chronological jungle. So that it's taking all of these true things and just kind of putting them together in one time period.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, this is based on the oral histories of former slaves, runaways, and accounts of some well-known escapees, including Frederick Douglass, and including one escapee whose name is eluding me right now, who was in an attic for 7 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, which is like Cora was for months. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act passes, which is where people in free states were supposed to hand over runaways to slave catchers. It was meant to deter the Underground Railroad and to deter abolitionists from aiding. Obviously,
Didn't work.
Yeah, people were still trying to aid, as we can see in this book. Author wasn't really concerned with chronology. The eugenics, the forced sterilization, etc., all of that happened, but not in 1850. Like, there were references to the Tuskegee syphilis study, Tulsa mobs, all of that.
So that's what the farm at the end was correlating to.
Yes, it was the Tulsa mob. Obviously, the lynching scenes are all rooted in history and historical events. It wasn't all going on simultaneously in 1850.
And not each state gets assigned one thing.
Yes.
They were all, yeah.
From what I could find, the most dramatized aspect was definitely the entire states. That's something we touched about. South Carolina basically representing, the eugenics movement. North Carolina representing dystopia and lynchings, and then the mobs and all of that. So each state kind of served as a representation of a different horror. And I guess you could say at that point, Georgia, which is where she was on the plantation, would represent
Active slavery.
Yeah. So kind of as she was moving through the train, she was also moving through different eras of trauma and horror that have continued in American history too, is another way to think of it. I liked how it was described as a chronological jungle because it's just all there. And she's just trying to navigate it. Yeah, that was the biggest stuff I had for historical accuracy.
Wow. All right. I feel like that gives me a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Should we hop into the calculator?
I think so.
All right. So we are doing data scientist Ashley's STAR calculator based on the categories of historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. Erin, would you like to go first?
Yes. I am giving historical accuracy a 5 because of how, well, there was nothing like glaringly just like made up. I mean, I guess you could say the railroad being a railroad, but that was, kind of.
But I don't think. But also the point of that is not for you to believe that the railroad is a railroad.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a poetic device, and you're supposed to know that.
Yeah. So again, it's the author trusting that we're intelligent readers, which I appreciate. I love how history was used in this book. I thought it was used very, very well. Originality 5 for sure. Characters 3. Cora was the main character, and I felt like she was. I don't feel that the other characters had to be super strong supporting characters, but
she was bearing a lot of the weight.
She was carrying this book on her back. I wish there was just some more, like, she started to have a romantic interest at the end, and then we didn't really get to know him at all. And we didn't even really know Caesar that well. So prose was a 3. Vibes a 2. Again, I was just not in the mental state, and I think I would have appreciated the prose more, so that's why I'm tying those together, had I been really just in the mood to read this book. So I gave it a 3.6, and I rated it a 3.75 on Storygraph, so pretty consistent.
And I asked you to go first because I have given it 5s across the board.
It's a big deal. We got to ring the bell.
Yeah. Historical accuracy, I was kind of waiting to hear, I hadn't made my mind up yet on whether or not to give it a 5 because obviously it does play fast and loose with a lot of the timings. And also it's not as thickly packed with detail as a lot of the other books that we have read.
Especially coming off She Who Became the Sun and The Other Berlin Girl.
Yeah, where the details for those are the devil's in the details. Summing up so succinctly with I care about the truth, not the facts. Yeah. That did this so well. And so I just feel like I don't have any other choice but to give it a 5. A 5 originality, 5 characters, 5 prose, 5 vibes. For me, this is a solid, true 5.
Amazing. Wow. How would you compare this to your other straight 5s? I believe was Violetta your only other straight 5?
I also gave one to Pachenko.
Oh, okay. How would you compare those 3? A kind of crazy comparison because they're all so different.
They are. And obviously, I would recommend that you read all of them. I hadn't thought about where I would put Violetta in the mix. I can say, I think you're going to understand this. It might sound crazy to some other people. I think my favorite book in that crew is Pachenko. I think the best book in that group is The Underground Railroad.
I think that's completely valid.
Yeah. So I would put this one on top.
For my top 5 of my, and I've had more straight 5s than you, I don't think anything's going to beat Homegoing. I don't think anything will ever beat Homegoing. That's a hard one. Actually, maybe a book this season.
Maybe. You'll have to see what it is.
Stay tuned.
And I will also say, we'll get into this more at the end of the season when we do our ranking of everything we've read. I realized I think I need to loosen up a little bit about what I'm giving a 5 in terms of the podcast. Because for me, I'm like, if I don't give it a 5 in every category.
She gives a good amount of 5.
I'm like, if I don't give it a 5 in every category, then I'm not giving it a 5. But I frankly, like,
that's why I round.
I know, but I have, like, I feel like I have guilt looming over me because I didn't give Snowflower a 5. And I'm like, come on. Like, that book's a 5.
Me slapping a 5 on every Lisa C book I've ever read.
So if it's a 4, I've decided that for me, if it's anything like 4, 7, 5 above.
Okay.
Then it's a 5.
Still less generous than me, but that's okay.
Then I'm adding to that Snowflower and the Kite Runner. So congratulations to my top 5, because that's what it is.
We're going to have to compare. At the end of the season, we're going to have to do a top 5 and a flops. Top 5, top flops.
Well, I think we need to do what we did last time and just like starting at the bottom, working our way up. This year, like this season,
it's a lot of bottoms.
The lists are going to be crazy. I don't know if we're going to have any that are in the same place.
No. So for me, I would say this one was a fine, for sure. But next week, what are we reading?
Well, if last week we read a Grace book, next week we are reading an Erin book.
This is, I don't know how to put this. This is and I'll get into it more next week because I'll have time to think about it. This is the book that changed my life when I read it. I've read it at least 6 times. There was one time where I read it and then immediately started over. Like, this book is, if you have to quintessentially pick one book that is like defining of my reading journey, it's this one.
The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak.
I'm so excited. Literally, the copy I was reading is like, it's a hardcover. The back cover is like falling off.
I love a well-loved book.
It's in bad shape, and it smells like old book. It's so nice. Anyways, until we get there, you have to follow us on social media. You have to. There's no choice. Follow us on social media at 5orflop_pod. And make sure you joined our Storygraph Reading Challenge for Season 2.
If you have any books that you think we should be reading on the pod, please fill out the recommendation form in the bios of any of our social medias, or you can email us at 5orfloppodcast@gmail.com.
Until then,
happy reading.
Bye.